We are now moving on to a discussion of corporate access to renewable energy. Let me ask our panelists, our next round of panelists to come on stage. Adnan Amin, John Woolard, Tristan Grimbert, and Rob Bernard will come to the stage. And also here to introduce this panel is Mike Garland, the CEO of Pattern Energy. Pattern Energy is one of the world's leading wind power companies with 16 facilities in 3 countries. Mike, take it over.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm very excited about this next discussion. And it's going to be about how many of the leading companies of the world are buying renewables directly. First reason I'm excited is we're a developer, owner, operator of renewables, so we love the idea of a new market that we can sell to. And over the last couple of years, we've seen this market explode in the United States. In the wind area, we've seen it grow from 5% of contracts being signed in 2013 to 23% in 2014, and last year it grew to 52% of all the contracts signed. So it's becoming a major part of our industry. The second thing that's really pretty cool about this is that these companies are really the leading lights in the industry. They're the beacons that are changing the way people think and corporations think, that they can actually buy directly. And we're hearing reports lately that there's over or close to 100 companies, major companies. You'll hear from Google and Microsoft, but there's Amazon, and we heard Wells Fargo and others who are joining in this commitment to buy 100% renewables. The third element of it is this movement is culturally changing our industry in 2 ways. The first is, it used to be we'd hear people talk about corporations wanting to buy green energy. And what's happened over the last couple of years is these corporations have found out that it's also inexpensive power. So the culture of why people buy electricity from renewable companies now, or renewable energy, is changing. The perception that not only are we changing the footprint of the carbon emissions, we're also lowering the cost that makes it affordable for almost any corporation to step up and buy renewables directly. And so it is the second thing I'd say that's culturally changing as a result of this is the idea of direct action. We hear a lot about all the policies and everything that is being done that require changes in government actions, utilities' approach to the business, and other things. And what these companies have demonstrated is we all can start taking direct action. We don't always have to wait for governments and utilities or other parties to be able to make the changes that we're all talking about here today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Admin, and we all look forward to a great panel.
Well, thank you very much. And that's a great introduction, which gives me a little more time to say other things, which is I want to start by saying this is the first time in my life I've been in California. And I'm very upset with my American friends for not having brought me here before. Because the sense of momentum, opportunity, openness, and optimism that I've seen among your entrepreneurs, financiers, technology companies. I sat on a Google bicycle. I sent the picture to my daughter. She's asking me if I can become an intern. It's really exciting, and it's exciting in a very palpable way, because I think it really indicates that the possibilities for change can happen by autonomous actors coming together to make that change. It can happen not by waiting for governments to tell you what you do or regulate things, but the power for change resides in the hands of many individuals and entrepreneurs, many of whom are here in California. So it's very exciting. We had an excellent discussion yesterday talking about corporate sourcing of renewables. We had the great pleasure of having some of the big corporates who are leading this charge. We had Apple, Google, we had Facebook, we had a company called Microsoft, which is in a place called Seattle, I think, but not from California. But really talking about visionary approaches they're taking, but all of this in the context of the fact that today we have a business case for renewables, and that the cost reductions in renewables have created a framework for change that is not punitive for businesses. And it has created space for leadership, for visionary business leaders to make transformational change in the world. And I think that was the sense we had yesterday. We talked about the barriers and the opportunities, and I think the opportunities are greater than the barriers, but we also know that there's a challenge ahead to make this happen. In this context, from the last CEM meeting, we had the support of Germany coming out of the discussion in CEM to look at the cost reduction potential for renewable energy. Now we've heard great things. Michael mentioned to you the 2.99 US dollar kilowatt hour cents, US dollar cents per kilowatt hour for solar PV in Dubai. I was with the Dubai guys 4 days ago, and it's real, it's happening, and we've seen cost reductions which are transformative around the world. Our cost analysis in IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, has now become a real guide for people who are looking at making investment decisions in the future. We analyze 15,000 utility scale projects in terms of what costs we're seeing, and we're about to release in a few days our latest costing report, but I wanted to share with you some of those numbers before the release to really give you a sense of the tremendous transformation that we're actually seeing. So we looked at solar and wind, and for installed costs for utility scale solar PV systems, we see a 54% decrease by 2025. So if you can imagine a 54% decrease on the 2.99 US dollar cents a kilowatt hour, that's remarkable. And this is due to technological improvement, manufacturing advances, economies of scale, but especially and increasingly in the future, reductions in the balance of system costs and better policy frameworks taking this forward. For concentrated solar, which we've always thought of as somewhat expensive, we see that costs could decrease for installed plants by 1/3 by 2025, again, thanks to technology improvements. But this could translate to a 37% decrease in the global LCOE for parabolic trough plants and 44% for solar towers. And when you combine concentrated solar and storage, we're looking at baseload solar power for the future. Onshore wind, installed costs for onshore wind could decline by 12% by 2025, already on top of the 3 cents we are seeing in Morocco today, thanks to the economies of scale as the market grows. And we also see for offshore wind, which has always been a question mark in terms of what will happen in the future, we see a 15% decrease in installed costs by 2025, translating to a 35% decrease in the global LCOE of onshore wind. Now, these are remarkable trends that we are seeing. We have made the point that we're already at the point where transformational change can happen on the basis of the technology we have today. But if you look at the possibilities of the future based on this kind of technological development, then the leadership being exhibited by companies in procuring renewable power actually looks like very smart business decisions. And that's the issue we're going to discuss in the panel. But before we have that discussion, I'm very pleased that Rasmus Christensen from Denmark, the head of international affairs at the Ministry of Energy and Climate in Denmark, is here with us to formally launch the Alliance for Corporate Procurement of Renewable Energy. Rasmus, please.
Your Excellencies, leaders from the private sector, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Danish Minister for Energy, Utilities and Climate, who unfortunately could not be here today, it's a great honor to formally open this one-year CEM Corporate Sourcing of Renewables campaign. In a nutshell, the campaign aims to break down barriers for corporate sourcing of clean energy, such as solar and wind. The panel of experts will in a minute go into detail on the importance of the campaign. I will try to frame why I think the CEM, with the right partners, can make a difference on this subject politically. Firstly, the campaign has been developed by the CEM's Multilateral Solar and Wind Working Group, with Germany, the United States, and IRENA as key players. The campaign has support from several CEM countries, as you can see on the screen, hopefully, in a second. And the number of partner organizations and efforts, including RE100, the Renewable Energy Buyers Alliance, the Climate Group, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the World Resources Institute, and others. In other words, I believe we have gathered the right stakeholders. Secondly, I think the campaign is a very good example of the added value of the CEM, and in particular the Solar and Wind Working Group. The group serves to overcome barriers for the deployment of wind and solar by elevating innovative policies and solutions from the technical to the political level. The group helps energy organizations like ARENA and the IEA to get policymakers' attention of the studies conducted by their experts. The group is also a channel for feedback from national policy experts, which ensures that the IEA and ARENA studies are as relevant as possible for different national and regional circumstances. Thirdly, when you're in a dialogue with the private sector, you obviously need to focus on costs. And I'm therefore very happy with the conclusions of the new cutting-edge cost study from ARENA, The Power of Change, which Mr. Amin just mentioned. And the study highlights that clean energy is not just a dream and relevant for the CSR managers of global corporations. Especially onshore wind and solar PV are now cost competitive with conventional technologies. So the business case is already there. Fourthly, an element in the campaign is to create further political impetus to develop, over time, hopefully, a remade consumer label, which is already part of ARENA's work program. I believe that this label has the potential to become a flagship project that can show how multilateral energy cooperation can create value for the private sector. And we look forward to be working with ARENA and the campaign partners on this issue and the other elements over the next year. But the campaign is already having an impact by creating a platform to coordinate and elevate efforts. A number of new corporate commitments have already been announced today as part of the campaign. You heard earlier the commitments from Wells Fargo. The RE100 campaign has also added a number of new commitments, bringing the total number of companies to 64. Global leaders in corporate sourcing of renewables, including Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Autodesk, have also announced new commitments as part of this campaign. So to summarize, I believe this CEM campaign can play a key role in unlocking the potential for more companies to power their operations with clean energy by bringing global attention to, first, the initiatives of our partner organizations, second, by identifying and breaking down policy barriers, and finally, by highlighting the solid business case. From the Danish side, we look forward to participate in this work towards CEM8 in Beijing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rasmus, and thank you again for the leadership that Denmark has always shown in looking to a positive future for clean energy. We have a movement growing here. I mean, if you look at the number of companies he talked about, if you look at the governments who are committed to this pathway, and you look at the possibilities of change, demand pulling the transformation of the global energy system, we really have an opportunity for change, which is why this initiative, I think, is so important. Everybody's talked a lot about Paris. I was at Paris and I was very excited at the outcome, but I've been following climate policy for over 15 years at the international level. I think the difference now is that the road from Paris is characterized by people who are committed to making change, and that's what's going to make the difference. Not legal agreements on paper, but people who see the opportunity for change. So we have a wonderful panel to talk about this. I'm very pleased that my old friend Thorsten Herdan, Director General of Energy Policy from the German Energy and Economy Ministry, is here with us. Welcome, Thorsten. John Woolard, Vice President of Energy at Google. Welcome, John. Good to see you. Tristan Grimbert, CEO of EDF RE. Tristan. And Rob Bernard from Microsoft, the Chief Environmental Strategy. Let me start by asking you, Thorsten. We all know Germany as the home of Energiewende, a very foresighted approach to how we change the energy system in the country. Why is Germany putting its weight behind this initiative, and what do you see as the opportunity for this?
Well, Adnan, you were talking about a change coming not only out of Paris, but specifically out of Paris, and you were also talking about, and I think that's the main point for a change of new business models. Because we will not get and see a change if there is no business model behind. And your figures very clearly demonstrated that there is a business model. That's the one point, that we want to bring this to the whole world. Secondly, we started with the deployment of renewable energies in Germany some 25 years ago. Since that, we have installed 90 gigawatts of wind and photovoltaics. 90 gigawatts. Last year, we produced almost 200 terawatt hours from wind and solar. So we are very happy if companies are really demanding this. That's a very simple thing, because we want to bring to the world that, yes, we started on a very high price. Just to give you a number, when we started with our Renewable Energy Act, we put a feed-in tariff of 50 euro cent per kilowatt hour for photovoltaics. And I'm happy to be here in California again, I must say, because somebody took me here before. That was my wife, and I was very grateful for her that she took me here. But I'm very often asked, why did you do this? But apart, why did you do this? We are very grateful that you did it, because you brought down the cost from 50 cents to now to 3 cents. And that says, we very often talk about that. Don't tell that to the German taxpayer, because that would be perhaps the wrong message to give to him. But it's true. We brought the price down, and now we are very happy to see big companies not only to have a green label on, but to have a business case that they are demanding this new technologies. They are not only buying it, but they are looking to install new PV and wind installations. And at the end of the day, of course, we are Ministry of Economy also and Energy, and I'm happy for everybody in the German business who can sell its products to the world. So therefore, we are very much looking forward to this campaign, and we are very much behind this campaign.
Great. And, I think what we've seen coming out of Germany, especially looking at energy transition in the future, is one of the indicators of global change. But I grew up in Africa. I'm living right now in the Middle East. My wife is from New York, which explains why I never came to California before. But one of the things you hear about everywhere in the world is the names of these iconic companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple. We know them everywhere. We may not know some of the big oil companies or other companies, but you are known everywhere. And you are iconic, and in many ways, you are really admired. So the power of your example and your investment actually reaches people and gives them a sense of change, because you are associated with change also. So let me turn to you, first of all, John Woolard from Google. I had the great fortune to visit Google a couple of days ago, and I saw some of the visionary things that you're doing for the future. I saw the wind kite, by the way. If that ever works, that's going to be something spectacular. But I heard you have a 100% target, and you're at 93% already in terms of procurement of renewables. Now, what is the fundamental reason that you're going in this direction? But how did you do it? Because, there are so many regulatory barriers or difficulties of procurement. How did you get over this, and how did you go in this direction?
First, let me explain a little bit about why, because why really matters. We started this initiative 5 or 6 years ago because it was the right thing to do, and because we realized that first our employees and our customers all wanted us to take action and to move forward, and that we had the capability to start to show how it was possible to move and to make some change. Now, we knew there weren't many large corporate buyers back then, but since then we've bought 2.2 gigawatts of power purchase agreements. Yeah. But more importantly, we've started to see others come in and participate and expand that ecosystem, and that's a lot of what today is about. Is just, this is not something where we want to compete with the guys at Microsoft on the other side. We want to this energy challenge and the climate challenge is one where we're all in this together. We want to really drive it forward. We want to make change. We need to change the systems. We need to change the markets. It hasn't been easy. So part of what we're trying to do moving forward is to address some of the breakdowns in the market structure where it's too complicated. It's some of the work we did in North Carolina with a green tariff, or some of what we've done with TVA, have been things that takes a lot of resources, a lot of focus. And North Carolina is a good example where now Google might have been one of the first, but now other companies can come in and take advantage of that tariff and to move forward. So to me, this is all about leverage. It's all about reducing friction in the system and friction for others to follow. And it's really important that you don't want to be out there by yourself. You want to have a lot of people driving this change, because as you've seen from some of the earlier speakers, we've got a very daunting challenge to move forward and move this into multiple tens and hundreds of gigawatts of renewable procurement.
Excellent. And you pointed to a very important fundamental driver, that the opportunity to collaborate in positive global change and make a difference transcends the strong competition that you have as companies. And I think that's very inspiring to see that we can come together for global objectives while we know that we are competitors in business. But I think what you also indicated is that the fact that you were one of the leaders, you created a framework for others to come in, and perhaps at some point we can talk a little bit more about how do we make this possible for smaller companies, for small and medium-sized enterprises, in terms of being part of this and not just the big corporates. But let me turn to EDF. We have an agreement before starting the panel that we're not going to talk about nuclear, so we won't.
It was not me setting the condition. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm just incompetent.
But let me ask you, you're a big global company. You are a utility in some places, a generator, distributor. When you look at this initiative for corporate sourcing of renewables at large scale, where do you really think the opportunities are, and how would you see the barriers? Is it policy? Is it understanding how grid systems are going to work? Is it infrastructure? Where are the real constraints?
Yes, so first of all, I'm happy to talk about anything. And a word of caution, I came to California 12 years ago, and I'm still here, so you have to be careful that you pack your bag tonight and go home. We have been in that business, so I run the North American renewable business for EDF, so I'm not on the nuclear side. And I've been doing that business for 12 years, and the company has been doing that business for 30 years. So we were, the all wind turbines you see in Palm Springs, if you have a chance to go there, we put them there. So the last 2 years I've seen a dramatic change with the coming of the corporate buyers. It has completely changed the market with some good things and some not so good things. To give you an illustration, 2 years ago, 100% of our project were contracted with utilities, and this year is going to be 2/3 with corporate buyers and 1/3 with utilities. So it's a big change in terms of market pool, basically. It has changed the market, but there is some limit to it in terms of the market structure. Is one of the big challenge we have is, as you know, in renewable, the fuel is free, but the consequence of that is, as an investor that we are, you put all the money up front. So it's 100% of the cost up front, and you need to have a good certainty on how you're going to make the revenue work during the life of the project. One of the limits of the corporate buyer market is the fact that usually the tenor is pretty short. It's 10, 15 years. We're fortunate to have some contract, 25 years with Microsoft and Google, so we're happy with that. But usually they are shorter term, and it's very important to put the policy structure in place so that the corporate buyers, because today corporate America wants renewable, maybe the Congress not so much, but not everybody in the Congress, but at least corporate America wants renewable. But the policy structure to be able to allow that market pool is not necessarily there. The tenor is one aspect, transmission is another aspect, the congestion management on the grid is another aspect. There are a number of things that needs to be done so that that pool of the market coming for corporate America realize itself into gigawatts of new demand and new renewable.
That's very interesting, and we talked about some of these constraints from the side of the corporates yesterday, Rob. You were part of that discussion, and we talked about the tremendous opportunity, but also the fact that, buying renewable electricity can be complex. Regulatory frameworks across state borders can be very difficult to deal with. All the issues that we heard about from Tristan about congestion, infrastructure, and so on. How are you approaching this? And the second part of that question, how do you see these initiatives like the RE100, the Renewable Buyers Agreement, and so on, as being a framework which can also help to take forward the objectives of this coalition?
Yeah, I think, the conversations yesterday and the conversations today, I think, highlight a couple of key issues that, we think about quite a bit, which is, what are the constraints that prevent early entrants in the markets like a Google or a Microsoft or others from purchasing? Which of those are unique to companies of scale which buy 175 megawatts at a time or something like that? And then which things are more commodity problems, right? They're problems that are universal across everybody. And so we try to focus on solving both of those problems simultaneously. We talk a lot about, so take the IT industry overall. It's about 2 to 4% of worldwide energy use, depending on what studies you use. It is definitely the fastest growing sector in the world in terms of new energy. But even if 100% of that energy is renewable, we're not even close to solving the problem at scale. So when we look at REBA, the Renewable Energy Buyers Alliance, or others, RE100, the issue is, how do you create a flywheel where multiple other companies can draft off of what the sort of leaders in the industry are doing? And it's very much almost like a software play, which is, look, you have early entrants who do customized software, but then you get to commodity and it gets ubiquity. It's the same thing with these business models and transactions. And I think one of the things that's interesting when you sort of really dive into the details, it's like, not every deal structure is the same, and that's a good thing. And we talked about this yesterday, which is, we've done something called an attribute purchase agreement and a power purchase agreement, and we've done direct and through others and three-party deals. And the more that you're being transparent, which is one of our new, the new commitments, is increasing our transparency on exactly what we're doing and how we're addressing these markets, you pave the road, and you'll know within a year, 2 years, or 3 years, if many people start to go down that same path, then we've created new market constructs. And if not, that's okay, because then you've learned from those and say, okay, these don't work, why not? And let's go to the next stage. So I think, whether it's REBA, RE100, or one of, many different initiatives that we've signed on to, it's really about driving the transparency, velocity, and acceleration, not just for ourselves, but for the entire market conditions. And for, ministers who are here today, or countries, if you want to attract the businesses which are growing rapidly, this is, we have a 100% renewable energy commitment, and we've been carbon neutral for a few years. Our friends at Google are doing the same, Apple and others. This is a prerequisite for us to do business in many places now. So, we want to work in partnership, and then also not just solve the problem for ourselves, but also for the industries writ large, because all of those are also part of our customer base.
You said a great thing, transparency, velocity, and acceleration. And if we reach that sweet spot, this is where transformation begins to take place. But as we go into transformation, we're going to see a lot of challenges. We're already seeing in the global power sector, especially countries that are moving rapidly towards renewables, that the current industrial structure is under a lot of strain. The old utility models that relied on centralized generation and distribution are under threat, many of them finding it difficult to change their business scenario to accommodate the movement to renewables. Does this pose a threat to the initiative? What can we do in terms of looking at opportunities for utilities to evolve to be able to service this kind of demand? And how do we see that happening? But let me ask Tristan and Thorsten to talk to that first of all. Tristan first.
Well, I think that utilities are very important, have a very important role to play. The renewable business is fairly specialized in terms of the multiple expertise that you need to deploy to do a good project. But we always work with the local utilities to provide, transmission, to provide grid reliability, and etc. And I see, so first of all, utilities can invest into renewable projects as well, if their regulator allowed that. But with the growing intermittency of power, renewable are largely intermittent, the role of utility to maintain a robust grid is more and more important. And I think that really in a number of projects, we're looking at a three-way partnership between the investor like us developing and building the project, the utility, and the corporate buyer.
Yeah, maybe that's a good lesson for the initiative going forward. Thorsten?
Well, I think utilities have to understand what the change is, first of all. Secondly, utilities are very different in different countries. Whether you have an unbundling or not, then you talk about completely different utilities. I think the initiative shows us quite substantially clear if the buyers have a transparency, which for us as legislators show what works and what does not work, we can adjust, because we are very much reliant that you are going to buy renewables if we are going to create framework with the deployment of renewables. And the utilities can also see what's their space in between. So if you look, for instance, to Germany, we have, and that is no secret, of course, we have a lot of problems, or the utilities have a lot of problems, because they stepped very late into the process, very, very late. So they were of the opinion that the old history will continue for decades. So for us, looking into Germany, this campaign is also very helpful to see big players like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple and others to clearly show we want the renewables, and to also show what can we do together with the utilities to get the renewables. And then the utilities have a simple choice. Either they are part of the game or they are not. We would like to have them part of the game because they have a lot of expertise and they have a lot of contacts to millions of people. And I think that is worth getting them into the game. And with your transparency, showing us what is good, what is not good, showing the utilities what they should do, I think that's a very good step forward for that campaign.
Okay.
And maybe one more word. I think what's important is that the transformation of renewable, very low gas price in the US and marginal cost zero renewable is changing the market structure. Yeah. And we have markets that are based only on pricing energy, which is hurting a lot the German utilities, which is hurting everybody. What the policymakers in this room have to recognize is that we need to think about three dimensions of revenue. One is energy, of course, but that's going to be lower and lower. Capacity is fundamental to accommodate intermittency of renewable. Carbon has to be regulated or priced one way or another so that renewable can survive, and ancillary services. And what's fundamental is for utilities to be able to survive and thrive in that environment is that the policymaker redefine the policy environment and regulation so that those four components bring different revenue stream to the different component of the market that each of the players will bring.
I think that's a very good point, because we have to understand that corporate procurement doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a system. And for this campaign to be successful, we need to understand what the win-win scenario in that system can be. But I have one last question for our two corporates. I grew up in an era where distrust of multinational corporations was an article of faith. So it's a little bit difficult to come to terms with the fact that you're actually good guys now. But at the same time, you have to make money. You're businesses, you're not charities. Is this good for your bottom line? How do people react to you going clean? John, why don't you start?
To us, it's great for our bottom line, because when you do the right thing and you really push things forward in the right way, you get all sorts of extra benefits around this. So not only it can be smart, plus there's just the fiscal issue of what's buying long strips of low carbon power provides a nice hedge as well. So there's a financial answer, which is we can hedge ourselves from volatility, we can hedge ourselves from as carbon, which probably should be priced over time, comes in. We've bought in at fairly attractive prices, so there's this pragmatic layer to this. But the most important is our customers and our employees all believe that we're a company that's doing the right thing. They push it forward. And what we're trying to do, one last comment, that we're trying to, as we try to expand the universe, we've offered to host, and I would encourage everybody from different countries, whether they're energy ministers or regulators, to participate in this. We've offered to host a series of discussions around this that help broaden that pot and enable others to learn from what we and Microsoft and others have learned, and to participate in a discussion that can unlock the power of this corporate procurement. Because, as Tristan mentioned, it's growing, but it can grow a lot bigger. And it's been tough. It hasn't been easy. We're moving forward, but we're moving forward through some fairly challenging obstacles. So this convening of a discussion, whether it's utilities, regulators, policymakers, I think is really important. It's important that people participate, and it's important that we all work to get it right, because once you do that, the potential of the corporate procurement to really start driving change, I think could move faster than utilities, could be more powerful, and could really we need to keep pushing this envelope. So I want to encourage everybody to participate in this dialogue and in getting the system and the structure right going forward.
Rob, you can prove that you can be briefer than Google.
So I would just say that it's absolutely fantastic for business, and I think one of the things to think about as we enter this new sort of paradigm of energy is what are all the knock-on effects of innovation? Because every time you raise a problem like storage, that's also a tremendous opportunity for our view of a mobile-first, cloud-first world, which is like there's massive amounts of data that needs to be exchanged. And how do you think about, and we were talking about this even backstage, which is what if you moved workloads around to take advantage of clean energy and thought about data and data computation as a battery? And what do you need to know about batteries as they hook into the grid? And so each one of these problems is actually a business opportunity for startups, existing companies, utility companies, all different kinds, and for governments. It is an unbelievable new dimension. The fourth industrial revolution is sort of something that's really taking hold, and I think that it's very much consistent with a new energy paradigm.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is such an exciting subject that is not conducive to brevity, but I just want to echo what John said. I think this is really an initiative that can make transformation possible, and that we need everybody, all hands on deck for this thing to happen, because it's on the basis of a positive business case, and it's happening today. So we need momentum. But we discussed on the utilities and the power sector that the power sector transformation has to be an important part of enabling this initiative to actually reach its logical conclusions. We have the Power Sector Challenge, which is one of the initiatives of the CEM. And just to get a status on this, I'm really delighted that we have two wonderful speakers who are going to give us an update on this. I'm very pleased that, first of all, Secretary Hakeem Caldwell, Secretary of Energy of Mexico, is with us to give us an update on this. He's played an inspirational role in Mexico. I've had the opportunity to work with him a little bit and seen what he's done on the transformation of energy legislation in Mexico is inspiring. Secretary Caldwell, you have the floor. Secretary Caldwell will speak in Spanish, so you may want to use your headsets for interpretation. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. No, I'm going to read in English.
Oh, okay, great.
This time. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The government of Mexico is currently undergoing the deepest energy reform of the past 70 years. In the electricity sector, opportunities are now open to private companies and the public in general for the growing use of clean energies. We are greatly encouraged by the results of the first clean electricity auctions. The winners are 11 companies, and the added clean generation capacity is equal to 3/4 the solar and wind capacity installed in Mexico in the last 2 decades. The most outstanding outcome of the first long-term auction is that in the areas of solar and photovoltaic energies, we have achieved the lowest prices in the world, which confirms that the global trend is towards a reduction in cost in clean generation in the future. Recent Mexican experience shows that the use of innovative mechanisms such as auctions, where different technologies compete, offer opportunities for companies to acquire clean energy at very competitive prices. It's worth mentioning that the reform has made it possible for several Mexican companies to significantly expand their consumption of clean electricity. Such is the case of important producer of cement, mining, self-service chains, and others. Moreover, progress has been made in the development of initiatives to boost clean energy, as announced in the ministerial meeting, Renewable Sources to Feed, the website which is being launched today. Additionally, the Mexican Independent System Operator of the electricity grid, together with the National Renewable Energies Lab of the United States, is working on the development of different scenarios for the inclusion of renewable energies on the grid. Which these projects, Mexico is actively participating in the global efforts underway in order to speed up the transformation of electricity models to systems with more green, reliable, resilient, and accessible technologies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Secretary Caldwell, and thank you once again for the great leadership you've shown in leading the legislation reform in Mexico, and the results that you have achieved, which you have described, are directly attributed to that. So once again, please give some applause to Secretary Caldwell for his leadership.
Thank you.
Finally, I'm also delighted that the wonderful Charlotte Pera, who is President and CEO of ClimateWorks, is going to give us a brief update on ClimateWorks' support to the Power System Transformation Initiative. Charlotte?
Thank you, Herdan. It's a very great pleasure to be here. The ClimateWorks Foundation is focused on mobilizing philanthropy to address the challenge of climate change and promote global prosperity. We make grants in a number of countries to advance clean energy, energy access, energy efficiency, sustainable cities, and sustainable land use practices. We collaborate with partners in the philanthropic community in this work, as well as with civil society organizations, governments, research institutions, and others, and of course, many of the people in this room. ClimateWorks has been very pleased to support the Clean Energy Solutions Center, certainly the Power Systems Challenge, and other CEM initiatives since the CEM was launched in 2010, and we maintain strategic alignment with many CEM initiatives. Looking ahead, we will continue to align our clean power initiatives to support power sector decarbonization in several CEM countries. These initiatives will support countries as they pursue the goals of the Power Systems Challenge, pursue sustainable development, and of course work to implement their Paris climate pledges. ClimateWorks also supports the goals of the 5 new campaigns launched at this ministerial meeting. Much of our work is aligned with these campaigns, and we look forward to working with the CEM and with all of you to help make these important campaigns successful. So thank you to the organizers. It's really inspiring to be here. This is such a terrific gathering, and we look forward to continuing to work with the people in this room and with other partners with urgency and clarity of vision to make ambitious and rapid progress on clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And we've reached the end of our panel, but let me say that, you know, one of the most wonderful things about this particular CEM meeting, I've been to quite a few, is not just that it was in California, and not just that it was in San Francisco, but it brought so many of you who are innovators, who are investors, who are philanthropists, who have this positive vision for the future, And I've never been in a CEM where I've met such a large community of like-minded people, and it's been very inspiring for me. But I think that you really need to recognize that this is a movement now. If we can really ramp up corporate demand for renewables, this will become a real game changer in terms of momentum for demand and for investment for the future. We know that it's possible to produce renewables very cheaply now. If we match that with active choices and demand for renewable energy in the future, it can really give an impetus that can help us achieve our climate goals, and I hope that all of you will be enthusiastic partners in this initiative as we go forward. Let me thank everybody on the panel. Let's give them some applause for great discussion, and thank you all very much.